Starting from October 7th, 2023, Australia has seen an explosion of vitriolic, vicious and even violent anti-Semitism. It's that anti-Semitism that burst into lethal violence on December 14th, 2025, killing 15, wounding 42 and tearing the heart out of the nation. That's what anti-Semitism can do when it's allowed to run unchecked. So this is probably a good time to unpack this word anti-Semitism. The Oxford English Dictionary lists the first appearance of anti-Semitism as occurring in 1880. Now, in that year, it was used widely in Germany, and from German newspapers it made its way into English. In 1880, it was used to label the vitriolic attacks on Jews coming from the pen of a German politician, journalist and editor, a bloke named Wilhelm Marr, and he labelled Jews anti-Semites. When he was being verbally violent against anti-Semites, or against Semites, meaning Jews, it made sense to label his attacks anti-Semitism. And how can we define the word? Well, an open line caller to my radio show who had lived in Germany said to me that Germans, because of their history, are very sensitive about this, and they regard anti-Semitism as too soft a word. Instead, they insist on labelling this ugly phenomenon Jew hatred. The International Holocaust Alliance has a long, detailed definition, an excellent definition, which I think can be summed up in those same two words, Jew hatred. So that's what it is. Where does it come from? It's important to understand that anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, is not native to Australia. Let me illustrate what I mean. When I was very young, I had a job as a junior clerk in the Sydney CBD. I worked at the Water Board briefly, waiting for a job opening in journalism to appear. Now, you'll understand when I use the words when I was very young, we're talking about decades ago. One lunch hour, I and another young bloke, a fellow junior clerk, were walking down Pitt Street when we passed the Great Synagogue. And the front door was wide open, and we decided out of young curiosity to go inside. Inside, we found a young man. He would have been, I guess, in his 20s. And we explained we were a couple of Gentiles interested in the Great Synagogue. He gave us a kippah each to wear, and he gave us a short guided tour. He was very welcoming, very nice. Now, this was in the late 1960s. I repeat, I was very young at the time. But at that time, there was no threat of violence to Jewish Australians. There were no guards in front of the synagogue. There were no locked doors. When we went in, we were welcomed with no hint of concern or suspicion. Now, looking back on that moment from this year, it looks remarkable, almost unbelievable. That's because vicious Jew hatred was simply unknown in my younger years. So, if Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, is not native to Australia, where did it come from? How was it imported here? How was it allowed to grow and fester here? And the answer is, I don't know. And we need to know. That is why we need a federal, national, royal commission that looks into anti-Semitism, how it came here, how it grew, and how the different levels of government have responded since. Dennis Richardson's review of intelligence and policing is specifically banned from looking at or reporting on anti-Semitism, which is why Australians are demanding Prime Minister Anthony Albanese give up on his stubborn, narrow-minded refusal to hold a Commonwealth Royal Commission on anti-Semitism, its causes and responses. By refusing a legally powerful and public inquiry into anti-Semitism, Albanese is actually guilty of politicising the worst act of terrorism ever committed on Australian soil. Albanese has turned a national tragedy into a political football, to be honest, by making an intensely political decision to oppose a Commonwealth Royal Commission and politically attacking his critics. In his stubborn refusal to properly investigate publicly anti-Semitism, he has several times mocked the opposition's detailed proposals. He says he wants unity, but then he himself divides the nation along political lines by giving political excuses for ignoring the national clamour for a Royal Commission. By refusing a Royal Commission, Albanese is damaging the Labor brand. Now, that's a big deal, damaging the Labor brand. The vast majority of Labor members of the federal parliament know that unless they publicly distance themselves from the Albanese position and add their voices to the call for a Royal Commission, if they don't do that, they will be in serious trouble at the next election. Prime Minister, I know you're watching. Prime Minister, the people of Australia don't want anti-Semitism to be politicised in the way you've done. It's not too late. You will look like a much bigger man, Anthony, if you call a news conference and say, I was wrong, I am calling a royal commission. Australia will think better of you if you have the courage to do that. That's the simple truth. But will our Prime Minister give in, do the right thing? I fear not. He has backed himself into a corner, and his pride, his overweening pride, his hubris will not allow him to back down and take politics out of the equation. John Howard once coined the expression political ticker, by which he meant political heart or political courage. Well, sadly, clearly, Albanese doesn't have the political ticker to do what people are calling for. That means we're all in trouble, because we're stuck with the Prime Minister who doesn't have the political ticker to lead our nation. He doesn't have the political ticker to stop anti-Semitism in Australia.